Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap-up for Friday, September 8th, 2017, the WNW 300. I'm coming to you from a farm in Missouri. I want to talk to you about, the crop report, which I want to talk about. It looks great, but may not be. But I also want to just today talk about the budget. I'll bring up a couple other things about the budget, about the money. I want to talk about the money because I think that's the most important thing that's going on right now that's going to affect all the country and possibly all the world. And I just want to start, I just have one headline today to start with, and it's this one from the Washington Post. And that is this right here, that Trump and Schumer get together to do a debt deal. They plan to pursue repeal of the debt ceiling. They also, with this little deal here, they also have a 90-day deal to December to repeal the debts to basically fund the government so we won't default. And also, they want to repeal the debt ceiling, which is a lot of people think it's a farce anyway, because every time we run up against the debt ceiling, we raise it, and we just keep raising it, because if we don't raise it, we'll default on our bonds. But when we do raise it, that's the other problem, is that we can create lots of inflation. Tons of inflation, actually. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about why Trump did this deal. And I don't really know. I mean, there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes, but on the face of it, you see, Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell, who are all, lips popped out, saying that they sided with Pelosi and Schumer. Now, listen, Ryan and McConnell have been overtly and covertly been basically attacking Trump. I mean, this whole farce of a vote on the repeal of Obamacare, and Mitch McConnell couldn't count to 50. He didn't. He's the Senate majority leader. He couldn't count to 50. He didn't know he didn't have the votes. Johnny McCain came in and kiboshed that deal, what deal it was, which still would have left everything in place. But, he didn't know that. And Paul Ryan, who's been basically attacking Trump just about at every turn now with DACA. Oh, don't worry about DACA. Don't worry about, the children that were brought here as illegal immigrants by their parents. But I digress. But I'm thinking to myself, why did Trump go for this short-term debt deal, where he would, piss off the leaders of the House and the Senate, which are in his party, and he went ahead with this debt deal? What does he see? Now, of course, we have, Hurricane Harvey and the aftermath of that. Of course, another hurricane in the Gulf, Jose. I don't even want to talk about it because I don't want to speculate on it. But if it hits again, that's going to really kibosh things. But let's just talk about Harvey. That's according to one Texas congressman, $1 trillion. I said it would be Katrina would be a rounding error, and of course it is. Now, this Texas congressman is talking about the total cost. I mean, you're talking about $100 billion from the federal government, but the total cost. I mean, just the crop losses in Texas were $150 billion reportedly. And now we have Irma on the other coast. I used to live in Florida. I never saw a hurricane went right up the coast in all the time I was there. I know it's happened before, but this is a monster. So we have record flooding in the Gulf area, Houston and Beaumont and Port Arthur. And the big story, the reported story, was the refineries in Port Arthur, which are huge. And then we have another record Cat 5 hurricane going to strafe Florida. Is that going to be another $1 trillion all told, the entire amount all told? Now, Trump did this debt deal with Pelosi and Schumer because he wants to get money to the people who need it at the coast as soon as he can. And Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell got upset, but they want to have some food fight over the budget and all that. But I say, I'm looking deeper into this. What does Donald Trump see? I mean, we're already talking about Russia talking about bypassing the U.S. dollar in oil trade. We're already talking about the BRICS countries breaking away from the U.S. Dollar. We're also talking about this massive debt and this quick move to go ahead and get a debt ceiling. What does Donald Trump see? Does he see some kind of a currency reset? Does he see some sort of war with North Korea? Is that war really a proxy of China, and China is actually getting North Korea to do all this missile testing and then saying, oh, bad North Korea? Who knows what's going on? Does Donald Trump see a market crash coming? And that because just my read on this, I don't have anything to back this up, and I don't want to state my opinion as proven fact, but my read on this is, boom, man, he went right for that debt ceiling, that 3-month deal. He also wants to repeal the debt ceiling as well. Gregory Mannarino, who's going to be the guest on the early Sunday release, it's a perfect time to him to come on. He's a friend of mine. He calls me up and says, Greg, man, did you see Brainerd? This is one of the Fed governors. He says, you basically just given up, throwing in the towel on raising interest rates. And they didn't talk anything about reducing their balance sheet. They got around $4 trillion or something like that, $2.5 trillion, something like that, of all this mortgage-backed security junk. Of course, when they try to shove that into the market, rates will rise. But they're talking about not raising rates at all. The 10-year Treasury is down to 2.5% for 10 years. Which, another thing I find weird, for 20 years into the future, you can get about 0.6% interest for a 30-year note. And, you might be wondering about, what's going on. Well, let me tell you, with the Fed and Trump and what is going on is the dollar. And I just got a dollar index here, and you can hopefully, see this dollar index here. You see right up here is January, and the dollar was 103 on the dollar index, about 103. But what I want you to grasp with this is this. Now it's down to 91. It's down to 91 on this index here, and it is unbelievable. That's an unbelievable fall right here. That is pretty stunning for the amount of time from January until now. It's really a stunning fall. The other thing I wanted to bring up is what's happening in the gold market. And, everybody in Wall Street poo-poo this and poo-poo that, and Bitcoin's going up, and it is going up because it's a basically a counterplay. But here is January on gold, and it, boom, 1350 and change. And so you're seeing, the dollar down and gold up, really up. Up high here, starting from down here and going way up here. You're seeing a $200 an ounce rise in the price of gold. Now, I know that's not a lot, but considering that, they've been stepping on gold and contorting gold and suppressing the price of gold because it doesn't make the dollar look bad, and it's still going up like that. I mean, that is pretty unbelievable. It's an unbelievable rise in the amount of the fall in the dollar. I mean, you have a 10, 11, 12-point drop. I mean, it went from 103 and change to 91 and change. I mean, 12 points in, 8 months, 9 months? I mean, that's an unbelievable drop in the value of the dollar. And they're talking about doing away with the debt ceiling. Now, they say they could just print the money for the bonds, but, at some point, people who buy those bonds, which are just balls of dollars. Euro bonds are bonds of euros. Yen bonds are bonds of dollar, balls of yen. Dollar bonds, treasuries are just balls of dollars. At some point, somebody looks at them and goes, wow, they're not going to curtail their spending whatsoever. They're just going to keep printing money. They're going to pay me back in confetti. And that's why I think what's coming is a carnival. And I've said this, I stopped saying this for a long time, but when I first went on, I said, ultimately, and you can go back to my old reports back in 2009, ultimately, I don't think we'll see inflation or deflation. I think we're going to see both. Charles Denner thinks we'll have deflation, and deflation is debt destruction. Deflation are Puerto Rican bonds that Puerto Ricans say, we've got so much debt we can't even pay the interest. Imagine having a credit card where you have where you have so much debt you can't even pay the interest, let alone paying down the principal. Now, Puerto Rican can print money, they could pay all that. Well, they can't. And if they did, what would happen to the Puerto Rican currency? It would inflate. And I think that we have both inflation and deflation coming at the same time. Debt destruction in bonds is terrible for pension funds. It's terrible for CalPERS. It's terrible for Social Security. Deflation is debt destruction, folks. It's not just prices going down. It's debt destruction. Inflation, of course, is you pay more for everything you need. And so you could have deflation in housing, but inflation in the price of gas and the price of food and the price of clothing and the price of heating and the price of everything else. I mean, who knows? But I got to tell you, I'm concerned with the money. I mean, Trump jumping on this 3-month debt deal. Now, he wants to also eliminate the debt ceiling with Schumer. And I think that's going to be another downside. That's going to tell the bond market, well, this is going to print money like crazy. What happens if people start selling this debt? I mean, what does John Williams say? Over 16 trillion or more held outside the country? And people start saying, you know what? I'm not going to hold that debt. Sell, sell, sell. Then what happens? Does the Federal Reserve have to buy everything? I talked to Manarino, who will be the guest on the early Sunday release, and he says, I think the Fed can't raise rates. I think they feel like they can't reduce their balance sheet. They're going to have to open their balance sheet and extend and increase their balance sheet. In other words, buy more junk because they'll have to, or we'll just default and say we can't pay. And I don't know at what point where that happens. Now, I will say something. I had Mark Taylor on, and he talked about the debt. And listen, I am not ashamed for having Mark Taylor on. I try to put I had Cliff High on. He's an atheist, which is fine. I think he's very smart. I think he's useful to some people. And I think Mark Taylor being on with his prophecies, his book has a tremendous backstory, incidentally. And in his book, he says he is ridiculed and mocked and made fun of in his book. But we talked about the debt. And at some point, something's going to have to be done to the debt. And the guy in the White House now has reorganized his own business at one point in his career in the 90s. You know, he was Mr. Hotshot in the 80s, got into the 90s, and he should have zigged when he should have zagged. And, he had all this debt he owed to the bankers, and he got them to cut the debt, reorganize it. I think ultimately the entire debt of America will have to be reorganized if the United States is going to move forward. And I think it will. But back to this 3-month deal, and I just want to say, what does Donald Trump see? Does he see a wider war? Does he see a war with China? Does he see an action that we'll have to take against North Korea? If you're going to be in a long-term war, you can't have a debt ceiling. And this is all my speculation. But something is up for him to jump on that 3-month deal like that and side with Pelosi and Schumer, people that hate him, to get his way. There's something he knows that they don't know, that he's not telling them, that he is privy to information. It's not just that we need money for Hurricane Harvey and that we will need money for Hurricane Irma. And then we have other hurricanes. I mean, how many hits can America take? Really, how many hits? I mean, the flood insurance program is billions of dollars underwater, no pun intended. And how much printing of money are we going to have to do? And I think some neurons are touching together with some wealthy people, and I think that's why we're seeing this action in gold. That's why we're seeing it go from here, the inverse of the dollar, right? So we got from here up to here, and all the while it's going up. It's the naked short selling and dumps in the market, according to Bill Holter, who's very smart and knows all about this stuff, and it's just bouncing off it. I mean, some of these actions with naked short selling, which are all illegal, which the government turns their head on, but there are. They would have killed the dollar and dropped it $50 or 50 points or more. And silver also on the way up, which I think is very undervalued. So does Gregory Manarino. But I want you to watch out for it. Now, that's the money version that's going to affect everybody in the country no matter where you are. And I pity the poor people in Houston if they get Jose hitting them again. But I also pity America because, we're going to see major supply shortages if they get another dumping from Jose that is out in the Gulf. If it goes the right way, we are going to have more problems unless there's some act of God which turns Irma off, and there's one behind that. But we're going to take some major hits. They're going to print some major money. That said, I want to come back to just a couple of things I did not bring up, and that is Comey. James Comey, fired FBI director. I mean, I've told you before, he testified in Congress that there was no obstruction of justice. He testified in front of the Senate 2 weeks after supposedly this event happened with Trump. Now we find out that he didn't do an investigation, that he had the exoneration letter written before he did any of the interviews. He also gave everybody immunity. Remember that? He gave everybody immunity and then took their laptops and reportedly destroyed them. Well, Comey did a fake investigation. This isn't just me saying it. It's former Deputy FBI Director James Kallstrom said he did a fake investigation. Is that obstruction of justice? Is that illegal? Is he in trouble? Does he need his own immunity deal? I say yes. And then we have Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who looks like her IT guy is turning on her and left a note and a laptop. And she was, of course, the head of the DNC and, of course, stepped down or was fired, whatever you want to call it, for cheating Hillary Clinton past Bernie Sanders in the Democratic primaries. But I think it's much deeper than that. I think it's way deeper than that. And that's really all I know about that. I just wanted to bring it up. There are going to be some big truth bombs come out, and they're going to be ugly, and it's going to be dollar negative. All the truth bombs are going to be dollar negative, but the only way to get past what we have in this country, and it's going to be painful, folks, is to have real statistics, have a real currency. We're going to have to do something with the debt that we're never paying off. We're never paying off this $20 trillion. We weren't going to pay it off at $10 trillion, at $15 trillion, at $20 trillion. That's our current deficit. And then the $100 trillion or the $200 trillion, whoever you want to look at into the future of what our commitment's on, it's unbelievable amount of money that we're not going to have the money for. We're not paying it off. And if America is ever going to be great again, like Donald Trump wants it to be, we're going to have to change the debt system. And it's going to be painful. It's going to be really, really painful. Now, the one thing I wanted to bring up is the crops. I'm in the middle of some bean fields. These are late beans, actually, and they look really good and fabulous. But they're needing some water. I mean, look at this. Here are the bean pods. Here's some foliar function, not foliar, but almost. We got some rain recently, so we need some more rain for these to flush out. They look good. They're pretty. Now, some of the beans are yellow. But the crops are all over the place. I think I talked about this earlier, that, some of the crops were way high. Some of them got in late. Some of them were real low. This one got in. These got late. These were planted because the corn got washed out. It didn't work out. But there's the crops are all over the place here in the Midwest. There are some big, beautiful crops where I've seen beans almost chest high. These are about waist high, but they don't have a lot of pods on them, at least not yet, and need rain. We may be getting rain if Jose or Irma comes in. This is in the central part of the country in Missouri, but that's the crops. The crops are okay. Really, some are great and some are not so great. Some are going to have insurance claims and some are going to have bumper crops. It's just, I've never seen it like this. It's just really all over the map. That said, thank you for supporting USA Watchdog with your comments and your donations. That helps us out. And I just wanted to close with, listen, folks, no matter what happens, Matthew 28:18 says that, Christ out of his mouth, he says to the apostles, quote, all power in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Depending on which Bible, all authority, all power. And listen, fear not. God the Father and his Son, Jesus Christ, are firmly in charge. And prepare yourself mentally, physically, above all, spiritually. Fear not. Early Sunday release, Gregory Mannarino. He's going to lay it out and give some new predictions and some new insights about what's going on. It's going to be good. So thanks for watching and supporting USAWatchdog.com.